Welcome back to From the Shelf, a show where I get bored sometimes and I review movies that are in my shelf. And today is a very special episode of From the Shelf, as this is a first fan suggestion for the show. And this comes from a fan in Washington. Thank you for suggesting a movie for me to watch. And today's movie came from 2016, actually, last year. I never watched this movie in the theaters, and I wish I had, because this is actually a pretty good movie, and that is The Accountant. The Accountant is directed by Gavin O'Connor and stars Ben Affleck as Christian Wolf, a high-functioning autism person who is an accountant. He works for various different firms, mostly illegal by federal standards, and he gets picked up by John Lithgow at Living Robotics, and he soon comes to find out that there is something going on with the books. There's even more espionage than there is as a whole. And at the same time, there's another storyline that is happening with J.K. Simmons, a federal treasury head, department head, who is retiring and has to find a sort of apprentice for taking his mantle as the Treasury head for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and it's kind of a hodgepodge of different storylines, but they all interconnect in one certain way, and that is through Christian Wolf as a character. These are all linked to one specific person, and I gotta say, the performance from Ben Affleck in this movie is really good, and he really blends into this character who has, once again, high-functioning autism. And my knowledge of autism is very, very limited in terms of what I actually know of autism. I know that there is there's a lot of variable characteristics, like they don't associate well with people, they can't really make friends, they don't look people in the eye that much, a lot of other different things, and this movie brings to light a social issue about autism, in a sense. And granted, while his sort of state of autism is a bit hyper fantasized in a way, it still has a lot of the characteristics of real autistic people. And his character, the way he acts, the way he moves is very, very interesting and brings to light another movie that I kind of like, and it's A Beautiful Mind, starring Russell Crowe. And they both similarly have the same sort of thing. They both are really good at mathematics. They are very persistent. And I almost really relate to Christian Wolf as a character. He's a person that likes puzzles. He's a person that, once you get him going on a certain thing, you can't stop him until he's finished. And that is something that I can relate to personally, as there are certain things where, I'll be writing a script and I can't stop writing it. Like, there's a script right now I'm working on for one of my classes, and, every time I keep expanding the world. I keep expanding it. I want it to be a perfect story, but sometimes, I gotta try to also grind back on the world building a bit, because, there is parameters on these things, but, there's a lot of times where I feel that I'm not finished with something, and I'll just continue to do it. And let's talk about the supporting characters a bit. Anna Kendrick is a character who gets in trouble for finding out that there's something wrong with the books at this robotics, this sort of amputee robotics place, living robotics or something like that, some weird thing, and she doesn't really have too much of a character. I mean, granted, she wanted to be an artist, but she didn't get to do that because it doesn't quote unquote pay the mortgage. And yeah, it's kind of a sad character, and I do kind of like how it's resolved at the end, but it just feels like, she's just there for a plot device, which is great. I find it okay. She does have kind of a character. She is enjoyable. In fact, the chemistry between her and Ben Affleck are actually kind of enjoyable when they're together, and now, You know, there's parts where they're really apart for a long time, and it's, you know, but you know, I think Anna Kendrick did a good job as her character as well. J.K. Simmons as a department head, well, he's J.K. Simmons. He's going to do stuff that's really great. Jeffrey Tambor's in this film. For a short period of time, he serves to be as sort of a mentor for Christian Wolf as a sort of accountant slash assassin, really. And he's really cool. He's a kind of a cool character, and he's only in it for a few scenes, but for the scenes that we get with him, it's pretty effective. As for other characters, John Lithgow plays the CEO of this company where he goes to, where Christian Wolf goes to do the accounting for, and he's okay. He's kind of an asshole in this film, and that's pretty true. That's pretty true to the character. Like that's all the character stuff I could say here. As far as the editing goes, there are some parts of the editing where I think it could have been a bit, you know, not as Hollywood. Like, you know how certain action scenes are cut, like, you know, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da? There's certain parts in the action scenes towards the end where it is like that, but it didn't really totally get on my nerves, but there was that sort of problem. As for the choreography for this film, it's pretty damn good. Now, is it John Wick good? No. But it's pretty damn impressive. You know, I feel all the individual beats, I feel all the sort of, like, the painfulness that some of these guys had to go through. You know, it's just so good. It was really good to see some good sort of practical choreography. I really enjoyed it. And it's not as, you know, over the top as, say, John Wick or Kingsman: The Secret Service, but it serves to be a much more grounded film. This film also deals with the issue of sort of family as well, because John Bernthal is also in this film. I forgot. John Bernthal plays this brother of Christian Wolf. And there's a kind of a subplot about him not liking his mother for some reason. It's not very clarified as to his entire character arc, but it just kind of gets left off at the end, and it's a bit disappointing for his character, in a sense. As for the story, there are points where I look at it, it's like, oh, well, that's a leap in logic, or that's not very making sense here. But it's very rare and few and far between. As for the emotional impact of this movie, towards the end, you know, this is a thriller. This definitely is a thriller. It's an action thriller. And there are times where it actually almost made me want to cry. Or not really cry, but like I was very invested in the movie. Not a lot of thrillers can do that for me. And I'm looking at you, A Cure for Wellness. You may have been a thriller, but I wasn't really enthralled. But this film actually made me very curious about characters, especially when J.K. Simmons is explaining the accountant, the character of the accountant, and this mysterious woman on the phone, which I won't spoil who it is because it was a genuine surprise to me. And everything else about this movie works. Everything about this movie, most of everything about this movie works. Aside from some logical leaps here and there, the acting is very good. The writing's pretty solid. It kept me intrigued, very entertained. Emotionally, it made me feel invested in the main character and his struggles. And it's overall a pretty good movie. Now, in retrospect, there is some people who, the box office for this movie wasn't exactly the best thing ever, and the critical reception was a bit underwhelming, which is kind of sad because I do think that this film is a bit underrated. I think this film deserves more than a 6 out of 10, definitely a bit more. In final conclusion, I'm giving The Accountant an 8 out of 10. It is a very solid thriller, with solid themes, with a nice sort of action-oriented thriller pacing. It kept me very interested, very emotionally involved with the main character, and it's genuinely a nice, inventive, original thriller. I can't ask for better. So what do you guys think? Have you seen The Accountant? What do you think of this movie? And what do you think of Ben Affleck as an actor? Let me know down in the comment section below. And until next time, I'll see you behind the camera. Peace.